In the last session, we have discussed agriculture as one of the oldest occupations practiced by the mankind and significance of agriculture as one of the primary economic activities in today's world. In this session, we will focus on studying various types of agricultural practices. It is possible to group agricultural practices into various categories based on factors like crops cultivated, methods and techniques used, geographical and climatic conditions involved, purpose and aim of the farming activity, scale of cultivation, etc. Thus, there are two broad categories into which we can group agriculture practices or farming, namely subsistence farming and commercial farming. Let us discuss each one in details, starting with subsistence farming. Subsistence farming. The word subsistence means condition of providing or having just enough for supporting or maintaining oneself. In this sense, subsistence farming refers to practicing agriculture in a manner which is just sufficient to provide food for oneself or one's family. It is traditional type of agriculture practice. Farmers cultivate comparatively small area to grow crops which satisfy the food requirements of their family. In simple terms, subsistence agriculture is small-scale farming to primarily grow food for consumption by the farmers and their family. Sometimes, if there is a surplus of food, it might be exchanged in barter system for some other materials of clothing, shelter, tools, etc. or be sold, but that is not common. Farming in this case is not done with an aim to produce large quantities of agricultural goods for commercial sales and making profits through such sales. This also suggests subsistence agriculture is labor intensive with no or minimal use of technologically advanced tools, machines or methods of farming. There are two methods of subsistence agriculture. Primitive subsistence farming. As the name suggests, primitive subsistence farming was more practiced in ancient times by various communities, villagers or tribes. It involved cultivating a small piece of land for a couple of times or few years to grow desired crops. When production of crop in the field decreased due to reduced soil fertility, farmers would switch to using a different piece of land to grow same crops for next few years. Two variations of primitive subsistence farming are shifting cultivation and nomadic herding. Shifting cultivation. This term is used because the farmers shift around to new locations every few years to farm new land. In this type of agricultural practice, the farmers remove and burn the natural vegetation on the earth in a chosen area. Thus, clear land area is obtained for growing desired crops. The ashes are mixed with the soil before using the land. Farmers can only grow their crops on the cleared land for 2-3 years until the soil is depleted for its nutrients. Farming that single patch of land tends to deplete its fertility and leads to losses in productivity after several harvests. Then, farmers must move on to a new area. They repeat the process to remove natural vegetation in that area and use it for cultivation. Hence, shifting cultivation is also termed as slash and burn agriculture. They may return to the previous location after 5 to 20 years after the natural vegetation has regrown. The most common crops grown in shifting cultivation are corn, millet, yams, potatoes, cassava and sugarcane. Shifting cultivation is practiced in the thickly forested areas of Amazon basin, tropical Africa, parts of Southeast Asia and Northeast India. These are the areas that receive heavy rainfall, which results quick regeneration of natural vegetation. While burning the natural vegetation helps clear land and retain fertility of the soil in the beginning, it does contribute to air pollution. It is also important to note that in such practice of farming, the subsistence farmers do not own the land. Instead, the village chief or council controls the land in any area. Such practices have been significant contributors to deforestation around the world. The second type is nomadic herding. This practice is similar to shifting cultivation, except that the focus is on raising domesticated animals such as sheep, goats, camel, yaks, cattle, etc., rather than crops. The term herdsman rather than farmer is commonly used for an individual who nurtures and maintains herds of domesticated animals. In this type of farming, herdsmen move from place to place with their animals for fodder and water along defined routes. This type of movement arises in response to limitations in climate and countryside. Thus, communities of herdsmen follow a nomadic lifestyle. The primary purpose of raising animals is to provide milk, wool, hides for clothing and tents, sometimes meats. However, it may be noted that pastoral nomads usually do not slaughter their herds for meat. Instead, they eat grains obtained by trading surplus milk and clothing for grain with local farmers. During grazing and foraging activities, animals in the herd eat weeds, grasses, and natural vegetation in a given area. This helps in clearing the land for cultivation. Animal waste droppings, which tend to fall on the ground, eventually fertilize the soil, which in turn is beneficial to farmers cultivating the land. Pastoral nomads or herdsmen are very aware of their territory. Each group controls a specific area and will rarely invade another area. Each area tends to be large enough to contain enough water and foliage for survival of animals in herds. Some nomad groups migrate seasonally between mountain or hilly regions and low-lying plains or plateaus. Nomadic herding is usually practiced in the semi-arid or arid regions because the climate is too dry for subsistence agriculture. It is observed that several communities in regions like Sahara, Central Asia, Middle East and Northern Africa and some part of India like Rajasthan and Jammu and Kashmir practice such lifestyle. The second category of farming is intensive subsistence farming. The most abundant type of agriculture practiced around the world is intensive subsistence agriculture. It is commonly observed in the humid, tropical, thickly populated regions of the world, especially in East Asia, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. In intensive subsistence agriculture, the farmer cultivates a small plot of land using simple tools and help from members of his own family. As the word implies, this form of subsistence agriculture is highly labor intensive as the farmer is using limited space for obtaining maximum productivity all around the year. Good rains, favorable climate, in addition to large number of days with sunshine and fertile soils permit growing of more than one crop annually on the same plot. This is a widespread practice where population densities are high and land use is limited. Usually, rice is the most common crop cultivated using intensive farming during monsoons, and wheat, barley, maize, pulses oilseed cultivation can also be included during rest of the year. In sunny locations and long growing seasons, farmers may be able to efficiently get 2 harvests per year from a single field by employing a method called double cropping. Summary. In this session, we have discussed subsistence agriculture in greater details. Let us revise the important concepts about it. Subsistence agriculture is traditional type of agriculture practice wherein farmers cultivate comparatively small area to grow crops which satisfy the food requirements of their family. It does not involve large scale production of any agricultural commodity. It is highly labor intensive with no or minimal use of modern machines and technology. There are commonly two variations of practicing subsistence agriculture, namely primitive subsistence farming and intensive subsistence farming. Primitive subsistence farming involves two types of agricultural activities: shifting cultivation, nomadic herding. The term shifting cultivation is used when farmer uses a small area by first clearing natural vegetation on it to grow the crops that he desires for 2-3 years. When the soil in this area loses its fertility and production declines, the farmer shifts to a new area and uses it for cultivating the crops in similar manner as previous one. Thus, farmers keep shifting from one area to another every couple of years for purpose of cultivation in a particular region and may return to original piece of land after some period of time. Nomadic herding is the term used when farmers or herdsmen move from one area to another periodically with a purpose to provide water, fodder and grazing pastures for the herds of animals they maintain rather than for cultivating crops. Intensive subsistence agriculture involves growing crops like rice, wheat, barley, maize, pulses, oilseeds, etc. in a small area using labor intensive methods. The crops are cultivated based on the availability of water and climatic conditions. Multiple crops may be grown on a given piece of land throughout the year to maximize its utilization. Do it yourself. Find out examples of unique animals that are commonly maintained by nomadic herding in cold, hilly regions of Leh and Ladakh. I am sure your mother uses green chilies in various food preparations. Can you grow the same in your house to provide just sufficient chilies for her needs in the kitchen?